us what happened in 1948. What was this place like?
Well, you had one water faucet, no telephones, and one electric outlet.
Bunch of guys.
1948.
Any girls?
Huh?
Any girls wanting to learn how to sail?
Oh, there was lots of girls. They would come out here from high school and college. There used to be lots of them all the time. Not like that anymore. But anyway, when we start racing in 48, I had a slip out here ever since I was about 12 years old.
Wow.
And I went in the Navy in 1943. And I got out of the Navy in 46 and I bought a Lightning sloop. And a bunch of us wanted to race, but we didn't want to join Southern. And at the time, Southern was selling memberships, social memberships, where you didn't have to own a boat or participate, just where you could go drink and eat. Because they wanted to build a new club, a new yacht club. Well, we always talked about having a club. Well, on top of the building here, the Navy constructed a wooden building about half the size of this concrete building, and it was right in the middle. And the Navy used it during the war. And at that time, we had seaplanes in the harbor, and we had air-sea rescue boats in the harbor, and a couple of PT boats. And we'd go sailing when I was a teenager, and you'd get one of these planes, and you're going to taxi out of the harbor and take off, and we'd be sailing. They'd go right in front of us, and they'd gun the engine and knock us down real hard. But
oh, that's fun.
Anyway, after the war, we talked about getting that building that the Navy deserted. They vacated. But right on the end of that building, on the east end of that building, of the wooden building, the yacht harbor took over and made an office there for the yacht harbor. And the rest of the building, we wanted to make it a yacht club. So we talked about it all during 48. So we had Cy Crochet. He was the first Commodore. So Cy Crochet worked at some office downtown, and they had an attorney, so the attorney got together and got all the bylaws up, and they come out here about Christmas holidays of 1948. Drizzling rain, freezing cold out here, about a week before Christmas, maybe about 4 days before Christmas. And they had the first charter for people to sign to incorporate the club. So Cy signed it, and his friend that was the Secretary Treasurer, what was his name? Anyway, he signed it, and then I signed it. And then Slim Bryant was a big, tall guy, used to come out here on a motorcycle. He was a good sailor. He went all over the harbor trying to get people to come sign the charter. He did a lot of footwork, talking to people. Some people, I don't want to do that. I don't want to join a club. So we got enough names. So they went to Baton Rouge and got the charter filed with the state, and got the corporation formed to make it New Orleans Yacht Club. But by the time the charter was active and the club was legal, that was in 1949. And at the time, one of the fellas in the club, his name was Bill Richardson. He used to work at Adler's on Canal Street. So he designed the Burgee that we fly today. And the Burgee, since he worked at Adler's, he made it up into a little bit of metal out of sterling silver, about the size of a postage stamp. And every time you won a race, you got one of these medals. Well, I had about 3 or 4 of those medals at home. I don't know whatever happened to them, but they were sterling, an exact replica of the Burgee. So time went on. We used to race every Sunday, and sometimes we'd race whenever somebody was there, but we didn't have a committee boat. So we had to beg people to come out there and be a committee boat. So it ends up where B.J. Lawrence, he was the big wheel with the A&P food stores in Louisiana and Mississippi. Well, B.J. had a 30-foot cabin cruiser, twin screw Richardson cruiser, all mahogany boats, pretty boat. So sometimes he'd be our committee boat. So I was on the nominating committee. I said, look, we got to get B.J. to make him Commodore. That way we can have a committee boat. So that worked. We got everybody to went all around and make people, you be sure to vote for B.J. Don't you dare vote for anybody else. You vote for B.J. So B.J. became the second Commodore. Well, we had a committee boat. That was until his boat over there at the basin blew up from gasoline vapor. He bought gasoline over there, pushed the starter button, and the whole boat blew up. His wife, Lucille, couldn't swim, but she learned right then and there. She learned to jump overboard in the basin. He went through the window of the boat, and he jumped in the basin. And the boat burned down to the waterline. The Coast Guard had a big 100-foot cutter by the lighthouse. They couldn't turn the cutter around, so they backed the cutter all the way down to where the fire was. But it didn't help. The boat still burned. So B.J. ended up buying a steel craft with diesel. And anyway, years went by, and we had lots of trouble with some of the members. Some of the members don't know how to talk. They got to tell filthy jokes. You have your wife or your girlfriend there, or some guys with their children. And these guys are using all kind of XXX language. And this caused a lot of problems. And we had electric lights. We decked on each end of the building. It was tar and gravel.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time I was working, I wasn't married, I was making big money. And I bought lumber. I bought all the lumber to build the decks on each end. And we had we went to the scrap yard where they have this old yellow pine coming out of scrapped houses. And we didn't have a hoist to put the lumber up on the deck, on top of the building. So we stood on the ground here and threw them like a spear. 2 by 6, and you throw it like a spear. A few of them went in the water. But we finally got all the lumber up there, and we built it. And we had lights. We strung up lights down there on the east end. And we had shrimp parties and crab boils and whatnot. And
It's all good times. Well, Ralph Hopkins,
yeah,
the famous Ralph. I'm member number 1191, and you're member number 3, right? It's an honor to meet you.
well, I wasn't married then, but I used to take my girlfriend out here. And one of the guys, he was always getting too drunk. He'd come up there, he's full of beer, and he'd have a half a bottle of beer, and there we have a bunch of chicken on the grill cooking, and he'd go baste all the chicken with the beer. He's drinking out of the beer, and he's basting the chicken with it. And he had such a loud mouth, and he was always telling filthy jokes. And my girlfriend said, I can't go with that. So she said, we can't eat, we'll have to go somewhere else to eat. So that went on, and he couldn't get the people to make some kind of amendment to the bylaws, the way people like this can be either fined pretty good or ejected from the club. It never happened. So I argued with him a couple of times, so I quit the club. I said, no, I quit. But I was the number 3 in donations.
Uh-huh.
The top man for donation was Johnny. Oh crap! I'll think of it.
Lowell?
Johnny. Anyway, he had a 43-foot Chris Craft cabin cruiser, all mahogany, beautiful boat.
Uh-huh.
And he used to tie it up right here, right past dry storage.
Uh-huh.
And Johnny would come up with the money for everything we needed. And if he didn't come up with the money, B.J. Lawrence would, and me. When I left the club, I had canceled checks for about $2,700. of the club. And the bylaws specify if you donate $1,000, you become a member for life.
Oh,
That's what the bylaws say.
Yeah.
And back then, the bylaws, the dues was $10 a year. And some people didn't want to pay the dues $10. They said, well, can we pay it at the end of the year back in late September? Pay the $10 then. Oh, it's all going to fold up. Johnny Dorth, his last name was Dorth. He owned a plumbing company.
Yeah.
And we have fundraisers. One time we had a fundraiser where all the ladies are going to bring lunch and put their name, the lady puts her name on the lunch, a brown bag lunch. And they're going to auction them off. Well, you eat your lunch with the lady that made the lunch. Well, in between time, I got married.
Member number 3.
Member number 3?
Yeah.
Mark Yancey, pleased to
Mark.
meet you.
Yeah.
Telling stories.
Okay.
Anyway, Johnny Dorth, money was no problem to him.
Yeah.
So when they auctioned off the lunches, he had all the lunches. He had all the lunches over there. He said, now I got all the ladies, see? So all the wives, the girlfriends is over there by Johnny. So then Johnny said, here, catch. And so he's giving the lunches to everybody like that. But he outbid everybody. He would bid ridiculous prices. He'd say, well, this lunch here has fried steak. What's the bid? Man, $25, $30, and this is back when $30 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So before you know it, Johnny had all the lunches. And then after everything was over, then he gave everybody lunches. But my wife just couldn't take the bad language in the club, and she didn't want to come up here. And I would come, I said, well, I can't leave her home.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was only married about 6 months, and she kept complaining and complaining because of the nasty jokes, and they want to scream it out to everybody. And so I left the club.